Okay, cool. Looks like Marie's here. So let's call this February 6th Ward 3 NAB meeting to order. Go ahead and do roll call, please.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Ilya Arberman,
Here.
Emmanuel Gutierrez, absent at this time. Gabriel Maya,
Here.
Marie Rodriguez. Here. Thank you. Our new member, Zachary Bolton.
Here.
Perfect. And then Shonda Golden.
Here.
Awesome. Mr. Chair, we have a quorum for the Ward 3 Neighborhood Advisory Board meeting. Prior to starting, members of the public may hear, observe, and provide public comment virtually by registering through the following link, which can be found on reno.gov/meetings. And the link is as follows: https://links.reno.gov/Reno3L A0F4. It should be noted for those in attendance that comments are to be addressed to the board as a whole. Comments heard under this item will be limited to 3 minutes per person and may pertain to matters both on and off the agenda. The board may not take action upon any matter not agendized on today's agenda. If you plan to give public comment, at this time, we haven't received in-person public comment. But if you would like to do so, now would be the time. Anyone in person? And then anyone on Zoom, if you would like to give public comment at this time, please raise your hand. Additionally, I would like to note for the record that Emmanuel Gutierrez is here as well. So we have a full Ward 3 Neighborhood Advisory Board. And then no public comment at this time, Mr. Chair.
Cool. Yeah, this might be the first time we're all here. So congratulations, everybody. Okay, we'll move on to item C, approval of today's agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
Marie Rodriguez, for the record, second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion is approved. So we're good for today's agenda. And then attached to our packet here, we have minutes from 2 meetings, the October 3rd and November 7th. Maybe take a quick look and then let me know when someone has a motion to approve those minutes.
Marie Rodriguez, for the record. There's actually a correction that needs to be made on the, I believe it's October. Councilman Martinez is entered as Councilman Rodriguez. And I believe it's the one in October.
Oh, yes, I see it. Yes,
Okay.
October 3rd, and it's the A4 A4 Council Liaison Report, second paragraph. Awesome. Okay.
That's
Thank
the
you.
only correction I found.
So motion to approve with those changes, if I could get a motion?
Marie Rodriguez, for the record, I make a motion that with the correction it be passed. Or accepted.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Thanks, guys. And let's move on. I don't see his Councilmember Martinez here today. I don't see him. Is he on Zoom maybe or no?
No, I don't see him in the audience, and I will keep an eye out for him on Zoom.
Okay, so should we just skip his item for now, move on to staff report?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so yeah, we'll move on to item F, staff report. Do we have any staff report today?
I do, Mr. Chair, at this time. It's a quick one, but I wanted to share this new program that the city of Reno is launching, and it's called Community Champions. It serves as a recognition program for those members in the community, the unsung heroes, really. So it aims to increase engagement, connection, and civic pride within the city of Reno by identifying and celebrating community role models and inspiring others to follow in their footsteps. Councilmember Martinez participated in this recently, but it is open to the public. Anyone can nominate anyone, which is the best thing. And it's truly for those who may not already be activists or members in the community doing stuff out there. It's more for the person you don't necessarily see, or the person you've, had groceries bagged for years and she always takes it out with you, whatever that may be. But it's, again, open to the community. You can find it on our website. It's called Community Champions Program. So if you just search, you'll be able to go here. The nomination form is pretty simple. You would just click on and fill out the identifiable information, so name, email, relationship. And the purpose for this as well is anyone that is nominated within Ward 3, for example, we will bring these nominations to the NAB. And the NAB will have input regarding the person that is nominated, gets to highlight them. Additionally, the person who does get selected as a community champion will be highlighted on our city social media and receive kind of like a little swag bag and a thank you for you guys and the council member. So truly a great way to highlight individuals in our community, because I know there's so many people out there who are doing the work and may not get the recognition, but this is our way to highlight that here. So if you have any questions or if you have somebody in mind, please fill out the form, and we'll be doing these quarterly. So today's the introduction, and then in the next couple of months when we get nominations, we'll bring them back to the NAB to hopefully have them speak about their work.
Cool. Okay, so then let's move on to the business items, and if Councilmember Martinez makes it, maybe we'll see if there's anything from him to report. But our first business item is B1, update from RPD.
That's a problem. No problem.
No problem.
All right, so I'm Lieutenant Carney. I'm the new swing shift watch commander for this side of the of the shift. What types of things do you guys look for in your as far as updates?
LT, can you speak into the mic real quick for the Zoom members?
It's the green, it's
Is
the
it? Yeah.
yellow and green right
Thank
there.
you.
Yeah, that way everybody at home can hear you. Ilya Arbitman, for the record, yeah, we've kind of gone back and forth with our PD over the years as to what we feel like we'd like to hear, the community likes to hear. I think an overview of the statistics is useful, but also some of that stuff is kind of just here in the paperwork. So honestly, I think sometimes we like to hear maybe if there's any kind of like big picture changes, say from last year to this year. Yeah, maybe any more specific info than you can give us here, and I'll also let anyone else hear. If you guys have any more other specific questions on the board, go ahead.
Yeah, so then I'll just address some of the Ward 3 statistics in here. I know it says like crimes against person, for example, it says there was a 39.5% increase in that. However, some of the things that we need to take consideration within Ward 3, they came from like Renown. I want to say the aggravated assault, we had 13% of the calls come from Renown. So it's just kind of the way that the reports are taken, how they're coded. Sometimes the officers may not know, or somebody doesn't know where they were attacked or something like that. But we have to populate something. So typically it'll just kind of be wherever the crime report was taken at. So this one, we had 13% were actually reported from Renown. And then when you move to a simple assault, you had 11.5% at Renown and another 11.5% actually at Willow Springs, and 7.7% of them were actually at RPD. So when you look at some of the numbers might be a little bit different. They're just a little bit skewed. They kind of give a false sense of information, just kind of the way statistics are in general. Everything has to be populated. However, it's coded, ends up kind of turning in on some of these things. So those things are kind of just wanted something to address because that was a little bit on the high side. For the majority of it, actually, Ward 3 has trended down. Stolen vehicles have gone down almost 40%. Same thing with destruction of property. That one down 19.5%. Overall total was a 6.1% reduction in calls for service percentage change, even with the 40%, almost 40% increase in crimes against persons. So that's a positive thing. Big picture stuff. I know we have been kind of working with some of the horse folks down there at Veterans Parkway to address trying to figure out a better way to address the issues. I know we have a lot of wild horses that kind of end up on the roadway causing issues for the motoring public as well as the horses themselves. So we're trying to figure out a way, something to do with that, but it's pretty difficult because as it may surprise people, horses aren't giving us a schedule on when they're going to come down and start hanging out on the roadway. But we're aware of it. We're trying to figure out the best way to do it, what we can do to kind of help educate the public about it, and also keep the horses safe as well as keep the motoring public safe.
we have any questions up here?
I do.
Shonda, your thing's gotta be green, I think, to be on.
Is
There
it
you go.
on now?
It's on, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to know about the gang violence. Is there a lot of gang violence in Ward 3? You say crimes against persons, but that's just still kind of vague.
It is vague. And I don't have the specific stats as far as gang violence into Ward 3. It's something I'd have to look into. I apologize. So I just came to this shift last week and they said, hey, your meeting's tonight. I was like, oh, okay, let me try to scramble and get some stuff together. I can look into it a little bit more, but I don't think that there was anything substantial over into Ward 3's district as far as Ward 3 was concerned. For some of our gang affiliated stuff, you're gonna have some of it, but not a lot. I know our regional gang unit just went into suppression to try to quell some of the violence, and I can actually pull up some of those stats. Lieutenant Howard put out a press release regarding that. So from January 29th to February 4th, they were in suppression operations. During that operation, the gang unit conducted, and not all of these are going to be in Ward 3, obviously,
Okay.
but it's a total of 21 misdemeanor arrests, along with 3 firearms, 3 vehicles related to shooting crimes, and 117 graffiti abatement removals. So when our gang unit goes into suppression, they typically work 12-hour shifts unless something happens that will draw them into continuing to stay out longer, in which case they will. During this particular operation, nothing dictated that they needed to stay longer, but they focus all their areas on kind of what they can do, who they were looking for, people of interest. Like I said, we had a couple shootings that were involved in some of our gang members. And so they were targeting some of the more violent offenders.
Okay. Also with this crimes against persons, does that include sexual assault?
Yes.
That's all.
Marie, do you have a question?
Marie Rodriguez for the record, and this actually might be more of a city council question, but I thought I read or heard that and I think, because I think it was Councilwoman Naomi Duer posted something about they're looking at putting some crossings down at that end of town for these wild horses to help with that situation. And I don't know if that's just in the planning stages or if that's been implemented yet. And like I said, it might be a city council question.
Yeah, it hasn't come down to us yet,
Mhm.
at least at the patrol level. Prior to changing assignments, I hadn't heard anything about it either. I know it was something that we had discussed, an idea brought up to try to keep, again, the horses safe as well as the public. But I don't know where that is in the planning stages.
Shonda Golden for the record. I just want to thank you and everyone in the police department for all that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ilya Arberman for the record, I will say, as far as the NAB reports go, I think it's kind of something, like I mentioned earlier, we've kind of been trying to dial this in, and I think it's been kind of tough. You're not the first person that's kind of been here and sort of been thrown into it, you know? If there's any way we can kind of reflect back, like, even though, you know, this report is helpful, I'd say, you know, it's not necessarily, we don't necessarily have to have a quarterly report, you know, if it's inconvenient, it might be more helpful to have something a little more in-depth, even if we have to like plan it out a little more ahead of time. Because I feel like sometimes we get these reports and then we can't, there just isn't really much to talk about, you know? So I don't, we can talk about that with staff too, but I would
Sure.
say, yeah, in the future, I mean, it's maybe not even great use of your time also is what I'm saying, you know?
So we have one of our analysts is actually the one that helps out tremendously with generating the reports, because Lord knows computers win when it comes to me. I can check my email and maybe buy a couple things, but that's about it. But so as far as it's very labor intensive when it comes to trying to pull some of the stats. The problem that you would run into is if you step it out, you're just going to have a massive amount of data. You're going to have a massive amount of calls for service. So actually trying to dive down into maybe more particulars of something. Like I said, I mean, so for this quarter, there were 26 simple assaults, 23 aggravated assaults, stuff like that. So if we were now going to, let's just say for argument's sake, we do it once every 6 months. So those are now going to basically double. So now you're going to have 52, 60 calls for service to try to either whittle down and go through. I was trying to get through and look at some of the reports to see if there were some of the property crimes like our theft from motor vehicles, if there was if there are any commonalities amongst them. I know a couple of them. So for example, for theft from motor vehicle, we had 10 for this quarter. 40% of them were from 970 Harvard Way. Now, they were all happened in one day, which means somebody went through and they just, broke some windows or did whatever it was. I apologize, I wasn't able to dive into the weeds in it. But being able to do this on a smaller scale makes it a little bit actually easier for us to try to dive into and kind of review some of those things, looking for patterns so that we can say, hey, if we're noticing a trend, let's say, I don't know, on a Wednesday night or something like that, we can put out to our patrol officers saying, hey, we see an increase in theft from motor vehicles in this 900 block range or wherever it's at. Can we try to do some extra patrols? And we can address it that way also. So this isn't just for you guys, it's also for us as watch commanders and the patrol sergeants. They get it, they can look at it, say, hey, what are we doing? Kind of be a little bit smarter about how we deploy our resources. Because like everybody else, unfortunately, we're very understaffed. So trying to be most efficient with what we have. So I would say that extending it out to get, unless you're looking for something in particular that is not very common, that in which case then maybe you need to put it out a little bit longer to get a larger data set. I think for kind of what we have here, and what I'm kind of understanding from some of the questions, these are pretty much going to be kind of everything that are most concerning to people outside of the traffic issues that kind of get funneled to our traffic division.
Ilya Ardman for the record. Well, but actually some of the things that you mentioned, like this more specific research that you did, that you just like about the cars are on Harvard Way or whatever. I think sometimes that's kind of the info that I think maybe would be interesting, and it wouldn't be like, you wouldn't have to flesh out each thing. But yeah, even if there was sort of like, if there's like a large percentage change, kind of like what you started with, I think people would like to hear,
Yeah.
just some more details beyond kind of the map and the numbers there.
Yeah, and so like I said, for me, what I'd like to do, time permitting and calls for reserve, stuff like that, is that when I come in, if I can see a commonality or I see a pattern, I can get into some of the reports and say, hey, what were the causes? If these were, let's say for crimes against people, if people are being randomly attacked, and I'm not saying they are, for example, if people are being randomly attacked while walking in dark neighborhoods, is there something that we can do on top of working with, proactive enforcement, extra patrols, working with the street departments, stuff like that, to maybe repair lights, things like that would be of note. It, like I said, it would make this having a smaller bite makes it a little bit easier. Just from this one right here is 154 different calls for service that are different crimes that were reported in Ward 3 in this quarter. So if you extend it out, now we're doubling that on top of everything else, trying to manage it. I don't know that it would be helpful as far as like you were talking about for my workload, being able to actually get into it and go, oh man, there's a lot here, trying to divide everything while I'm still trying to manage staffing in the rest of the city. I don't know if that would be particularly helpful. Like if there was something specific you guys are looking for, like, hey, if there's a way to incorporate some of the gang stuff, I can loop in Lieutenant Hallert and say, hey, what do you have for these areas? He oversees our regional unit, so there's other things that go on there. But I don't necessarily know that there would be a way, because what you're talking about is seeing a percentage, but for our analysts to look at it, they would then have to go through all of it themselves while they're not only doing Ward 3, but 1, 2, 4, and 5, on top of the other statistics that they help us with when it comes to presenting to city council, when it comes to a multitude of other duties that they have that they also report back to the department for. So being able to look at that for me and say, hey, this is where the commonalities are, to have an analyst look at it and go, hey, I need to now pick, I don't know, 7 addresses or whatever that maybe is a concern to your ward. That's a little bit more in depth of saying, hey, give me all the crimes from 900 Harvard Way. And again, sometimes depending on how they're reported or how they're categorized in the report system, they may not be super accurate when it comes to doing broad searches in the way our CAD system works, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah, Ilya Ardman for the record. Yeah, well, and I hear what you're saying. I was just sort of tossing out the longer timeline, mostly because, like I said, you're not kind of the first police officer to sort of come to a NAB meeting and basically say, like, this is my first time, and then it ends up being your only time doing it, So I'm just trying to brainstorm how we can make it, kind of more worth kind of everyone's time, and not have you feel like you have to just like scramble and do a bunch of stuff right before you get here,
No, in theory, I should be here, but for a while, at least through July. It's when we rebid, so it should be me, outside of somebody above me making a different decision saying, hey, we're gonna need to move some lieutenants. There's gonna be some promotions here probably in the next few months, that's gonna demand a restructure. So there's a possibility that, some of the lieutenants are gonna be moved around, different assignments, so you may get another one. And you may have another one by the next meeting, I don't know. But I totally hear what you're saying.
Okay,
My
yeah.
intent is to be here, and to try to provide a little bit more useful information that you guys are asking for. That's why I opened with, hey, what are the things that you're looking for? If there's anything outside of here, I can try to dig into it and find some of it, for the next one.
Okay.
Give a reminder for the record. I do want to bring up a concern that I do have. Specifically what I've seen around my neighborhood, around Spring Drive, Mariloma area. Obviously I know that officers are spread thin across all the city. But is there any specific what's it called? Like what you mentioned as far as operations to try to see speeders that go across bus stops? Because it seems from a personal point of view, I have I do have a sister that needs to take the bus stop.
Mhm.
But my mom has a driver to the bus stop because we don't feel comfortable because a lot of cars in the specific main roads on Mariloma Drive and other streets, they're wild in the morning and
Yeah.
they speed a lot. And again, I know that our area is not, unique. There's many other areas that deal with the same issues, but I used to see more like those type of operations once in a while here and there in different areas where they will have officers around, let's say, Mariloma Drive.
Mhm.
And it's a good like quarter mile that they have to go 15 and they don't. And there will be like a motorcycle on the side just pulling people over left and right.
Mhm.
I don't know how can we bring up that kind of concern into the PD, to our PD, where we can, as a citizen, we can ask for that kind of a, more patrol in different areas of where the kids go get on their bus stops and stuff like that.
Yeah. So you're talking about school bus stops, I assume.
Correct.
Okay, so with the 15 miles an hour zone. So what I would recommend is encouraging citizens to go to Reno Direct and kind of put in reports saying, hey, we're seeing a lot of speed during this time. It's important that they don't just get in there and say speed. It's not super helpful to us when somebody says, hey, we see speeding. But specifically like times in the morning, times in the afternoon, if they can give us a time range, days of the week, if it's more or less, if it's more busy on Friday, more busy Monday, Wednesday, whatever it is. The general overarching, hey, we see speeding over here is kind of hard for us to nail down, like I said. So I would encourage members of the community to go to Reno Direct and be as specific as they can. Hey, between this time, this block range, whatever it is. What happens is then that gets pushed to our traffic division. Some of our SAVE volunteers will actually go out and do traffic studies and kind of help out to see, okay, hey, are there things that are playing visual optical illusions? So just a little bit of background. I spent 6 years as a motor officer. That's what I did for a long time, many years ago. So, if there are curves in the road, it plays optical illusions and it appears that the car is going faster than it actually is. Larger vehicles appear that they're going faster than they usually are. Hills, all sorts of things like that. Those all play factors into it. So sometimes what we see is we'll see people saying, oh my God, they're speeding so fast, when they're actually just kind of coming around a curve, and it just plays that optical illusion and people think that they're going faster than they actually are. So what happens then, our SAVE volunteers will go out with a radar gun and go, hey, yep, they track however long it is for an hour, say, hey, these are how many vehicles we clock. These are how many vehicles we're actually speeding. And we get a little bit more information, and then it gets pushed out to our motor teams. A decade, 12 years ago, when I was a motor officer, the division was significantly larger. I mean, we had, I think, 36 motor officers at one time. We're less than half of that now. It's just kind of an unfortunate thing that everybody's dealing with right now. It's not an excuse by any stretch of the imagination, but it's just the reality of what it is. That's why I say it's very important to for community members to be as specific as they can, so that when we do get down there, the public sees the benefit of it, so that we don't send some motor officers down there at the wrong time. And then the motors are down there going, man, I was there for an hour and a half and I saw 4 cars. Well, they only saw 4 cars because they were down there at the wrong time. You know what I mean? So having the correct information for us is very important, so that we can address some of the concerns, stuff like that. And obviously with the patrol officers, we can go in and try to do some more proactive patrols. Some of it isn't always feasible. And some of our a lot of our patrol officers actually aren't radar certified anyway. It's a different certification. You have to go through a class, stuff like that. So some of it's training, some of it has to do with that, but some of it is just presence. If we can just have people drive through there, we all know, everybody sees it when you're driving on the freeway or anywhere, you see it, there's a cop car and everybody's like, ooh, slowing down. I'm not going to pass that guy.
On the
So
freeway.
absolutely. It was some of the deterrent stuff. Yeah. Yeah. And you can also reach out to school PD. Washington County School Police Department, they used, I don't know how big it is now. They didn't have a whole lot of motors, but they had some. But they can also come out and help too. That would be something that I think would be good for them since it's kind of revolving around their students and the school zone, stuff like that.
That's very insightful. I've never thought about that. Yeah, that's pretty good. Well, no, thank you. Thank you for your time. Again, like I said, we understand as well. You know, there's a shortage of officers. I think if you guys had all the officers you guys needed, the city would be completely crime free. But that's
Hopefully.
you know, that's not possible. And I personally appreciate all the work you guys do out there. I know it's not easy, and thanks again.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Jarrett Singh for the record. I had a question about just, I guess, operations, like how you all conduct business and whatnot. Is there any notable changes between 2023 to 2024 on how you approach certain scenarios or things like that that would be worthwhile talking to the community about?
I don't think I quite understand the question, just overall, just so it's hard to say that because we don't approach every situation the same.
Yeah.
There's no cookie cutter answer to policing. A lot of it's just dependent on staffing, on the crime, on who it is, time of year. I mean, everything plays into it. So to say that we kind of approach all of our operations the same would be definitely misleading. So I don't know that I don't really know how to answer, if that makes sense. I'm not trying to dance around it. I just don't know really how to give you the answer that you're looking for.
No, that's fair. Yeah, I guess for me, I'm thinking of like, we used to handle a houseless person on the street being loud this way.
Mhm.
Now we've done research or whatever, and
Mhm.
we're looking to approach it this direction instead. Things like that, yeah.
So dealing with the homeless situation, a lot of it has changed. We work a lot of it has to do with kind of the downtown area right now. But the Downtown Reno Partnership has a partnership with Clean and Safe, has a partnership with Karma Box and things like that, where the resources are out there. They're definitely being offered. Our most team are social workers. They go out and they're offering resources as well. Some of them, a lot of the population is just resource resistant, where they're offered and they decline the offer. The CARES campus has expanded, so there's more beds available. There's more space available. So it's not necessarily just kind of the same thing of, hey, doing what we have been doing. The city itself is trying to change things. The law enforcement aspect of it is somewhat shifting. I think people are understanding a little bit better that law enforcement is not the tool for everything. It's been kind of the blanket for, if you will, for probably the last 8 to 10 years, because we're one of two entities that will always answer the phone, us and Fire Remza. We're here 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, doesn't matter. So trying to understand and truly get a better understanding of what it is that they need and things that can help that way. And trying to provide those resources, trying to get those in touch. Community court's a newer thing. I wouldn't say it's not new from last year, but it's a new approach from how we used to do business. For those that don't know, community court, it's almost a way to kind of hold some of the folks accountable of, hey, what are the resources that you need? Do you have an ID? No, let's go get you one. And it brings them to an area where they have all the resources here. Hey, do you need some alcohol counseling? Cool, let's go over here. And they literally can be, it's kind of a one-stop shop, is kind of what that is. So that's probably a more notable thing for, just because you brought up the homeless situation. That's kind of something that has been shifting a little bit since the time I've been here.
Cool. Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Good.
Thanks.
Anybody else? All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you.
And I do see Councilmember Martinez is here. I don't know if you had a report that you wanted to come up here for, or we should just keep going on ahead with business.
Yeah, thank you, though. I appreciate the question.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll move on to B2.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Grace Macadin. I was actually supposed to be here last month regarding our new survey, so I'm trying to promote that. So I'm not sure if you've seen it. We've done a bunch of promotions on news channels, Facebook, other social media sites, trying to really get the word out there so we can get some accurate public opinion. Just for context, ADU is accessory dwelling units. These are commonly referred to as a granny flat or a caretaker's quarters. They're currently not allowed in most areas of the city. And then short-term rentals or STRs are what we would commonly refer to as an Airbnb or VRBO. And those are currently not regulated within the city. These two go hand in hand, and we've kind of seen throughout the survey that one of people's major concerns about ADUs is if they can be used as short-term rentals. And so that's why we wanted to combine them within this survey, because we knew it would come up as a concern. So it addresses both items within the survey. And it's been open it'll be open until the end of February. And it's been open since January. Some of the responses we've seen are actually fairly positive, especially for ADUs, which I think was a little surprising because this issue comes up constantly of, why aren't you guys having ADUs? Why don't you have ADUs? And then we look into implementing them and we get a lot of resistance. And so I think hopefully this will show the city council that although the people that maybe show up to the meetings are really opposed, and maybe the people who have, the loud minority, the overwhelming majority of the people who have taken the survey are overall in support of something like this. The survey link, so I do have some handouts. We have them in Spanish as well as in English. The survey is available in Spanish, and it's on our website as well, but I'll leave these kind of just at the front. So if you know anyone, please tell your neighbors, your friends, take the survey. It's providing some really insightful information. We've had 1,600 responses so far, which is really significant. It's actually, a statistically significant survey at this point, as long as we can prove that it's a random sample. And so we're really excited to be able to bring this to council and let them know what the community thinks.
Ilya Arbitman, for the record, can you just clarify, so what are the rules right now around ADUs and short-term rentals?
Yeah, so ADUs are currently not allowed in most areas of the city. There are a few neighborhoods that have grandfathered them into their regulations. And then there's some new communities such as Somerset and some new planned area developments that do allow for ADUs. The difference, so we allow for a guest quarters without a kitchen. You can build that, or you can build an addition, obviously, you can build more bedrooms. We just can't have that kitchen, and because it makes it kind of an independent living area. So if we did adopt an ADU ordinance, it would allow you to build a standalone accessory dwelling unit on your property that does have a kitchen. A lot of people use these for a aging parent or a caretaker or kids going to college, especially with affordability right now. It allows people more flexibility in, living situations. Short-term rentals are not regulated. So currently you could have all your properties on your street an Airbnb, and we would have nothing that we could say to stop that.
And Ilya Arbitman, for the record, to clarify that second, you're saying that the response has been positive so far. You mean pro ADU and pro short-term rental regulation?
Yes, sorry, that was an ambiguous response. So pro ADUs, as far as short-term rentals, it's fairly split. There's a lot of people that say, property rights, I should be able to do whatever I want with my property. I would say overwhelmingly it's a pro affordable housing response that we've been seeing. And so a lot of people want to see ADUs implemented, but they want restrictions put in for short-term rentals. Because like I said, I think those things go hand in hand with affordable housing. So a short-term rental is going to inhibit somebody from having a long-term housing in that particular unit. And ADUs will just increase the inventory. And so that's what we're seeing is overwhelmingly positive as far as affordability goes, but negative for short-term rentals and, positive for ADUs.
Marie Rodriguez for the record. So you said currently the ADUs, which is kind of like a separate dwelling area from a main house, is
Mhm.
currently not allowed except in certain areas.
Correct.
And when I'm thinking of this, I'm visualizing because, as a teenager, my parents had a home like this
Mhm.
where they had the main house, but over the garage, they had an apartment that was rented out and it had a small kitchenette in it. It
Exactly.
wasn't in Reno. But I've seen houses like this. So are these grandfathered in if they're already built, like some of these older homes that had these?
It depends. So they might just not have a kitchen. They might be illegal. They might have made those improvements illegally, or they might just, they might be old enough to where they were grandfathered in. We don't typically implement new ordinances and say, okay, now everybody has to come into conformance. But for the most part, the ones that we do see within the city are just caretakers' quarters, so they don't have a kitchen.
So with this survey, are we trying to get that changed to where people can put these in their homes to make affordable housing available? Is that the plan?
It depends. So we're really just trying to get some feedback. So on November 1st, City Council initiated staff to look at adopting an ordinance for ADUs or accessory dwelling units. And the response throughout history, it's been kind of a controversial topic. A lot of people are very opposed to accessory dwelling units. And so we thought, why don't we start with a survey, get an accurate representation of what the public actually thinks before we write any ordinance that would allow or not allow ADUs in certain neighborhoods. So this is kind of the first step in this process. So however you feel, there's an opportunity to provide an open-ended answer. So if you're saying, well, yeah, I think that they should be allowed, but I think you should take into account parking, then you can put that in there. And it gives us some context. So how we should maybe write an ordinance.
Yeah, like I said, I know of homes that have these kind of things and it seems like if you, have an apartment over the garage, that seems okay. I think maybe the concern is that somebody decides to go to Home Depot, get 4 sheds, put them in their backyard. So maybe a limit as to how many per size of property? Is that the type of thing you're looking for?
Yes, exactly. That would be great information.
Give a reminder for the record. With the knowledge that you guys have prior to this, what was kind of the limitations to have an ADU? Does it also bring down the value of property? Does it enhance it, or anything of that nature as far as value for the home or
Yeah.
for the neighborhood?
I think it depends. I think for the home, it will increase your property value just because you have more square footage and, you can definitely rent it out and make an income on that, which also provides people with some flexibility. In the past, that we've seen that the concerns are, and I think this is potentially misinformation, but if everyone were to put an ADU on their property, it would devalue someone else's home within the neighborhood. There's really no evidence that I've seen to support that, but that's been something that's brought up as a concern.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, no more
Great.
questions. Thank you. We'll spread the word.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, we do have a
Oh,
question on
question on
queue.
queue. Yeah.
So I'm going to allow her to speak at this moment. Wanda, give me 1 second. And then you should be able to go ahead and ask your question. Your time will start now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm just wondering how this will affect the communities that have CC&Rs that restrict short-term rentals or ADUs on the properties.
Yes, thank you for that question. That's come up at, I think, every NAB so far. This will not impact that. So if you currently have CCNRs or an HOA that restricts, prohibits, or regulates anything, whatever we adopt will not change that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then no one else at this time, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thanks very much.
Great. Thank you guys so much.
Okay, we'll move into B3, the Uri North Neighborhood Street Rehabilitation Project.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alicia Auk. I'm an associate civil engineer with the Public Works Department, and I'm here today to present on the neighborhood street projects being constructed this year. First, I would like to talk about the neighborhood street program and how the city selects the streets. The city of Reno manages over 530 miles of local roads and has developed a pavement management program to maintain this road network. City staff continually inspect and maintain a database that logs the condition of local roadways to determine best candidates for the city's preventative maintenance and street reconstruction programs. Once inspected, each street is given a pavement condition index score, or a PCI, that ranges from 0 to 100, with 0 being a completely failed pavement and 100 being a newly paved road. Streets with a PCI less than 55 are candidates for reconstruction projects. Engineers group the streets with the lowest PCI and provide recommendations to City Council for confirmation. More information, as well as an interactive PCI map, can be found at reno.gov/capital projects. The city has selected 2 street projects this year. Uri North and Uri South Street rehabilitation projects were approved by council for construction for 2024. In Ward 3, we have the Uri North project that will be reconstructed between Mill Street and Bresson Avenue. In Ward 1, Uri South will be reconstructed between Plum Lane and Gentry Way. Focusing on the Uri North project in Ward 3, you can see in the picture above that the PCI, or pavement condition index, for Uri North ranges from poor to very poor conditions, which is one of the reasons why the Uri North project was elected for reconstruction this year. The scope of this project includes the replacement of over half a mile of roadway, over a mile of sidewalk, curb and gutter, new signage, striping, and improved pedestrian connectivity. This is over $2.5 million that will be invested in this community. Concrete improvements for the project include the replacement and installation of 4 to 5 foot wide sidewalks on both sides of the street, installation of new curb and gutters, driveway aprons, and reconstruction of pedestrian ramps to meet current ADA requirements. Once all of the underground utility and concrete improvement work is completed, we will remove and replace all the asphalt pavement and install new signage and striping. The city has sent out project notifications to the neighborhood in January to inform them of the upcoming project. This project advertised on February 1st, and during the advertisement period, the city will be holding a neighborhood meeting. Staff goes door to door, passing out flyers and informing residents of the project and the upcoming public meeting. The award of this project will go to council on March 27th. If approved, this will go to construction in the spring of 2024 and is anticipated to be complete by the end of the year. Great. Thank you for letting me present on this today, and I am open for any questions you may have.
Marie Rodriguez for the record. I just wanted to say how happy I am to hear about this plan. I'm very familiar with that area. I think that neighborhood is long overdue this. And so I just wanted to let you know how, like I said, how glad I am to hear that it's being addressed.
Thank you.
Jarrett Singh for the record, and I am also happy for this as well. I live on Valley and it is another street that I think could use a little bit of love. And I'm curious if there are ways to nominate streets or like submit your street for review or anything like that.
Yeah, so if, I don't know if we can go back to the second slide, but the city has a great interactive map and it is, available to the public.
Mhm.
So, if you go to this map on reno.gov/capital projects and you select the pavement map, you can scroll into any street or area that you want, and actually see the condition, that we rank the streets. So, I believe the street program is usually on like a 3-year basis where projects get approved by council. And so it really depends on the neighborhoods, the PCI score,
Mhm.
of Valley or your neighborhood, and then the budget, obviously, and the area that we're working in at that time too.
Okay.
There are more streets that need fixing, so.
Give a reminder for the record. I do have a quick question as far as I'm actually pretty happy with that I saw this on the slides where the sidewalks and the gutters are also gonna get looked at and fixed. Because I think as we just went through a couple of snowstorms and we can see that, the streets that we think they're all okay, they're not okay as far as drainage and that kind of stuff. So would that be, what could be the best way to voice that opinion as far as to have certain gutters re-looked at to see the angles if they're not, positioned correctly or anything of that nature? Because I mean, me personally, around my neighborhood, there's some spots on Spring Drive that don't seem to get really, they don't get cleaned up as far as the snow doesn't smell as quickly because they're just like big puddles of water in front of driveways and stuff like that. So where can I address that concern? Well,
Sure, that's a great question. So, the storm drain issues and the curb and gutters, that could be, related to multiple different things, whether it's grade or, sometimes storm drains get backed up. Maybe your catch basin is just clogged with leaves. So I think the best place to kind of get help with that would be to go to Reno Direct and submit online and have someone look at your specific location if you're seeing issues in that area. And at that time, they can also maybe tell you if there's upcoming storm drain work or street projects, on the schedule for those areas too.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Marie Rodriguez for the record again. So in looking at that map, when you decide which road to work on, like choosing Yori this time, and I don't argue that it needed that attention, are you looking at the ones that have the more poor scores that need addressing? I mean, is it kind of like they need the attention the most? That's where we're going to go first. And second question, when it talks about new signage and striping, and I don't know if this is something that Streets is even responsible for, but for EMS purposes, I know that some neighborhoods have homes that have addresses on the curb where other places you don't see that. Is that something the city's responsible for, or is that something the homeowner's responsible for?
I believe the painting on the curb addresses is something that the homeowners can opt to do. When we do our street reconstruction programs, we generally will re-put the addresses back on the street if they are there. And as far as choosing the streets within the area, yeah, there is like a little bit more emphasis focused on like around schools and hospitals and just the areas in the neighborhood and what's around, like the park. So this is a very, well-traveled street with a couple of schools and a park nearby. So we haven't overlooked the other streets. It just might be the funding and come in another year.
Okay, I don't see any questions on Zoom.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
I think we're good. Thank you so much. Okay, we'll move into B4, East 4th Street Historic District presentation from the city.
Hello. My name is Melissa Hapey. I'm a management assistant with the Arts and Culture Department at the City of Reno. I'm here to present a project to conduct preparatory activities in anticipation of a National Historic District nomination along East Fourth Street. On October 25th, 2023, Reno City Council approved funding from the Nevada State Historic Preservation Office through a Department of the Interior grant to conduct Phase 1 of a National Register Historic District nomination for East Fourth Street. The first phase consists of hiring a consultant to document the historic context of the corridor and to survey and inventory the historic buildings fronting East Fourth Street. The project area runs from Evans Avenue on the west to Galletti Way on the east and may include buildings that are significant to the history of the area, but that are just off of East Fourth Street, so maybe around the corner. The Historical Resources Commission of the City of Reno selected COTS environmental consultants to complete this work, and it will occur during the spring of 2024. The consultant will be conducting 2 activities during the project period, and these will be presented at a meeting of the Historical Resources Commission in the summer of 2024. The project begins with documenting the history of the East Fourth Street corridor, including the railroad history and the role that East Fourth Street played as a segment of the Lincoln, Victory, and US Highway 40 roadways. The report will cover the history of the corridor up to the completion of Interstate 80, which bypassed East Fourth Street upon its completion in 1974 to the north and effectively ended Fourth Street's role as the major east-west commercial corridor through Reno. After the completion of the historic context report, the consultant will conduct research on each of the buildings along East Fourth Street in the project area to determine how many historic buildings remain and what condition they are in by conducting a visual assessment of the building's exterior. This is sometimes called a windshield survey because it can be conducted by driving the route and looking at the buildings outside the windshield of your car. The survey will help the consultant determine what buildings in the project area, if any, may be eligible for a historic district nomination. A data sheet for each building will be produced and recorded with the State Historic Preservation Office, and it will include a picture of the building, basic details such as building style, construction date, general condition, date of construction, and location. All of this information will be made available to the public through the City of Reno website, Historic Preservation website. East Fourth Street was the major road connecting Reno and Sparks and heading west out of town toward Verdi. The Nevada, California, Oregon Railroad Depot, later called Western Pacific or purchased by Western Pacific, the depot and the rail yard and locomotive house were located between Evans Avenue and Valley Road. As the nation gave way to automobile travel, Fourth Street was the highway and developed into a thriving commercial corridor with motels, restaurants, gas stations, and other businesses to cater to tourists and locals alike. The street remains an important part of Reno's history and unique identity today. On this slide are some images from East Fourth Street's past. On the top left is an image of the Reno Garage baseball team in 1930, which was a semi-professional team that played against regional teams at Threckles Baseball Park, located approximately where the CARES campus is today. On the top right is an image from the Fight of the Century, a boxing match between Jack Johnson and James Jeffries that drew national attention in 1910. A boxing match arena was hastily built for this occasion between Sutro and Montello on East Fourth Street. On the bottom left, we have the Ferris Motel as it appeared in the 1950s. It's one of many motels that catered to the increasing automobile tourism of the mid-century. And the last image is of the Reno Brewing Company bottling plant designed by local architect Frederick de Longchamp, which opened in 1940. These are just some of the historic events and places that make East Fourth Street significant to Reno's history. And the project will better identify and document this history as well as the remaining buildings associated with the history. The funded project is designed to prepare for a second phase that will produce a National Register Historic District nomination along East Fourth Street. The National Register is an honorary designation that recognizes places that are worthy of preservation. Listing on the National Register does not impose any property restrictions and does not prevent the demolition or alteration of buildings listed on the register. What listing can do is support heritage tourism and economic development by identifying a historic theme and the historic places associated with this theme and making the contributing buildings eligible for preservation tax credits from the federal government. The project will support a connection with Reno's past that preserves a sense of place for our community. There are already 2 buildings on the National Register on East 4th Street. The former NCO Railroad Depot pictured here, which is now the Depot Restaurant and Distillery, and the machine shop next door, which I think today is Black Rabbit Meadery. There's more information about this project at the city's Arts and Culture website under the Historic Preservation tab, which is renoculture.com. You can receive updates about the project by signing up for the Arts and Culture newsletter, and you can learn more about the history of East 4th Street and the significant buildings there by going to Reno Historical on the web or by downloading their app. And I am here to answer questions.
Ilya Arberman for the record. Thanks, Melissa. Really interesting presentation. Just a question. So basically the person goes like building by building and determines if the building qualifies, and what makes it qualify?
So the consultant will first identify a historic context. So they're looking at the history of East 4th Street, I believe from 1913 when it was dedicated as the Lincoln Highway until 1974 when I-80 was completed. They will describe the events, the historic events that occurred during that period and kind of what made East 4th Street significant in the city of Reno. And that will help them determine whether a building will qualify or not as historic under this specific context. There's a possibility there will be different periods of historic significance. For example, the railroad history might be a different period than the automobile tourism of the mid-century. And so some buildings may qualify for relevance under one theme and not the other. The railroad buildings are not really relevant for automobile tourism, for example. And so they'll identify whether there are 2 stories here or multiple stories along East 4th Street. And then they will go building by building down East 4th Street, determine if that building was there during the historic period or periods that have been identified, and whether the building still reflects that period. So a building that has been really modified, for example, it was a brick building and it's now covered with a stucco facade and all of the windows have been replaced and the garage doors are now retail storefront windows or something along those lines, then that building may not reflect its period of significance if it was related to railroad history in the past or something like that. So they will very broadly evaluate each of the buildings in association with the historic theme that they've identified and determine really preliminarily whether or not they may be eligible for a historic district nomination. Phase 2, should we realize that there are enough buildings and significance to create a National Register district nomination, then they would do that and do a much more in-depth research on each of those buildings that they identified in the survey portion as potentially being eligible for listing.
And Ilya Arberman, just follow-up question then, seeing as a lot of those buildings, many of them are vacant, some of them aren't in great shape, and in general, that stretch could use some love. You said no restrictions are placed. Is there, what kind of benefits might that part of town get? Say that a bunch of the buildings were deemed historic, like you mentioned something about tax credits or what kinds of things could actually materially benefit?
So the listing on the National Register is a federal program and makes these buildings eligible for federal historic preservation tax credits and other incentives if the federal government were to adopt them in the future. A historic preservation tax credit is a credit on construction costs for rehabilitation on and a historic building. The project, for example, if I was a property owner along East 4th Street and I bought an abandoned building that needed a lot of investment to put it into service, then I would be able to potentially, as long as I was restoring the building consistent with its historic period, potentially be eligible for a credit that could help build an economic package that would fund that development.
So if you were going to demolish it, it wouldn't stop you from demolishing it? But you wouldn't be eligible for
You would
those
not be
credits
eligible
anymore.
for a historic preservation tax credit if you demolished the historic building that you would take the tax credit on. The state historic preservation office monitors applications for historic tax preservation credits, and they would ensure that any alterations to the building preserved the building's historic integrity.
Cool, thank you. Any questions?
Gabriel Maya, for the record, just to kind of clarify a couple of things. So it's being said it's the East 4th Street. So each building will be evaluated individually. So not necessarily like the whole stretch of the East 4th Street will be nominated or be under that protection, correct?
That's correct. It's unlikely that all of East 4th Street would qualify for one National Historic District nomination.
Okay. And it's just like a curiosity that just came to mind. So let's say you're a landowner, and there's one building that on the same lot that you own, one building could be considered for the historic preservation, and there's another building that you build afterwards and it's more modernized. Will that tax credit also, would that imply for the whole lot, or would that be just for that one specific building?
The preservation tax credits are per project, so they are tied to a building that is listed on the National Register. So if I had a parcel large enough to build a second building, and that second building was modern, it would not be on the National Register.
Okay, thank you so much.
Shonda Golden for the record. What kind of modifications could you do inside of a historic building? Let's say someone decided to purchase one of these historic buildings. Like, what could you do inside the building? Could you make it a restaurant?
A National Register nomination or listing doesn't have any restrictions. There are restrictions per local zoning code that, of course, historic buildings are still subject to, but the National Register listing does not stop a property owner from changing the building use, making any alterations whatsoever to the building, including demolishing the building. If the property owner was trying to pursue historic tax credits, the entire project would be reviewed by the State Historic Preservation Office to ensure that those credits are going towards a project that's going to preserve the building, but it can be rehabilitated for another use. So for example, the depot building was a train station depot for the Nevada, California, Oregon Railroad, now is a restaurant. Though that is a project that potentially could qualify if it met the rules of the State Historic Preservation Office.
Okay, also, do you have any examples within this, not necessarily our state, but any other states of a community or neighborhood that's similar to what you're wanting to do?
So we actually have two National Historic Districts in Reno already. One is the old portion of the University of Nevada, Reno campus around the old quad. So all of those older buildings like Manzanita Hall, Lincoln Hall, the Manzanita Lake, the old Morrill Hall, and that quad with the big trees. That's part of a National Historic District. And then Newlands neighborhood, or what we might think of as Old Southwest, is also a National Historic District already. One of the qualifications for the historic preservation tax credits is that the building has to be income producing. So individual homes don't qualify for those tax credits. Only things like restaurants, hotels, other buildings that are commercial buildings essentially. And there are lots of great examples of buildings, of rehabilitation projects or renovation projects of historic buildings that have taken advantage of these historic tax credits, but they are in fact pretty rare in Nevada. But if you look at the National Trust for Historic Preservation, they often feature these types of projects. They have a website and they'll showcase really beautiful renovation projects that qualify for the tax credits.
Marie Rodriguez for the record. Is there any particular reason why this is being limited to 4th Street between Evans and Galletti? As we know, Reno is full of old buildings, and one that makes me really sad to drive by is that old bank in downtown, the old Reno Bank. and why something, why nobody's looking at that. So I'm just wondering why this particular area between these particular streets, is there something significant there?
This particular, we wrote a grant project and we're looking at creating a National Historic District. To create a historic district, there needs to be a concentration of buildings associated with a historic theme that share that historic theme in common. The Reno National Bank building at the Harrah's complex is a little bit isolated right there. There's not a lot of remaining buildings from that era that are nearby that building to create a district. A district is going to be multiple buildings. There are lots of opportunities to recognize historic buildings in Reno. This is just the first one that we wrote a grant for recently. But the Newlands Historic District was also a city. We also did receive a grant to work on that project. And I'm not sure how UNR became a historic district, but there was somebody who was interested in doing that. Does that answer your question? The process of nominating a historic building to the National Register takes a lot of research and then goes through a process of review with the State Historic Preservation Office. So it's a pretty lengthy project as well. It doesn't mean that building won't also potentially be added, but it just isn't a project that the city's doing right now.
Ilya Arberman, for the record, just final kind of timeline question. So what's the timeline on how long it takes to get surveyed and when we can kind of look for an update?
So the historic context and the survey activities will occur by the end of July this year. Probably the historic context first is written over February, March, and then the consultant will be out on East 4th Street as weather allows during the spring months, and then presenting to the Historical Resources Commission their findings by June of 2024. There are grant deadlines that have to be met, and the entire grant project has to be wrapped up by the end of July. The National Register nomination, if there's evidence to produce that second phase after the results of this initial project, wouldn't even probably begin until 2025. And that process is very lengthy. So it would be a couple of years before East 4th Street was designated a National Historic District or any portion of it.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to B5, presentation by KTMB.
Hi, everyone. My name is Matt Weber. I'm with KTMB, Keep Trucking Meadows Beautiful. Has everyone heard of us? Kind of know what we do? Yeah, so KTMB stands for Keep Trucking Meadows Beautiful. We're a local independent nonprofit. We've been around since 1989. We are a 501c3. We do mostly environmental work in the community. We have several initiatives, including our recycling guide, our youth education. Most people know us for our cleanups and our volunteer work in the community. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about today, our cleanups program and ways that the NAB as well as the general public can get involved. So yeah, this program it's been around since 1994. It's our flagship program. It's volunteer driven. There's 4 major partners, the 3 municipalities, which are Reno, Sparks, and Washoe County. And this is funded by Northern Nevada Public Health, formerly known as Washoe County Health District. So it's all funded through that. The secondary partners are some federal agencies, Forest Service and BLM. And then we also have the Sun Valley Improvement District, or SV CivGid, as well as the Reno Sparks Indian County. And then we also work with the Washoe County Sheriff's Office as well, too. Cool. So like I said, it was started in 1994. It is volunteer driven. That's basically a way for people to give back to their community. We do that through, setting up cleanups in public places. Basically just a way to give citizens Trucking Meadows a place to live, work, and play, make it safer and cleaner for everybody. So this is kind of a variety of reasons why people volunteer with us. Volunteering is a very personal decision. So this is kind of just a smattering of the reasons why people volunteer with us. So they care about the Trucking Meadows, which is kind of a given. They want a clean, beautiful, and safe region. They want to make a statement. And a lot of our fraternities, sororities, churches, scouting groups. That's one of their biggest things. They'll bring out, hundreds of people on a cleanup. Healthier, safer environment for wildlife and residents as well. A sense of community service and community pride. I know that's one of the things, one of the reasons why I like doing it. I'm from Reno, born and raised, and giving back to our community is important to me. A better place to do business. We get a lot of companies that are moving to Reno. They take that into account when they move here, and they want to expand their business operations. We provide a lot of recognition as well, and I'll get into that later, as well as the municipal partners. They provide recognition as well. Community service credits. We work with different high schools and the Truckee Meadows Community College. They have it's called the Nevada Promise Scholarship. They're required to get a certain number of community service volunteering credits every semester to keep that scholarship. And we're happy to oblige them with that. I think it's eight hours every 6 months. So they definitely, provide a good service to our community for that. And the last one, I put it's fun and rewarding. It's not for everyone. I think it's fun and rewarding. I'm one of those people that enjoy doing it. I remember picking up trash on the way in from recess in school. So it's just kind of built into me. So, but I know that it's not for everyone, but I put that on there as one personal thing too. So the real beauty of the program and the best part of my position here is that it is really all inclusive. Anyone and everyone can participate. This is kind of a sampling of some of the groups that we get. The best part about it is that, like I said, everyone can do it. We even have age appropriate cleanups as well too, and we try and make things family friendly. That's the best part of my job, is working with families. I didn't get into volunteering until I was in my 30s, and I felt like I missed out. So when I see families volunteer with their kids, it makes my job, really worth. I feel great about it, and to see kids getting involved early is very important for what I do. So a lot. Oh, can you go back to the one? Yeah. Oh, one more. Okay, cool. So like people ask, where do we clean? We do get a lot of complaints a lot of times on private property, but our volunteer work is only on public land. So parks, rivers, roadways, areas where people can gather without the fear of trespassing. We do direct any kind of complaints, quality of life and nuisance violations to Reno 911 or Washoe 311 or the city of Sparks if it's a code enforcement issue. But we do clean up only on public land. A lot of people, we get complaints all the time, and it's, I would love to help them, but that's up to the property owner. So we direct them to whatever the jurisdiction is involved there. We work with different municipalities, like I mentioned before, Reno, Sparks, Washoe County. They'll come to us with certain projects or initiatives that they want to get done, and then we provide the volunteers to make that happen. So yeah, a lot of people think that we're just picking up trash, and that is a huge portion of what we do based on our growth. But we do have a variety of different projects. Beautification is kind of what what we do. So picking up litter is, kind of the number one thing that we're known for. We also spread a lot of mulch. We create mulch through, different, through our Christmas tree recycling program, as well as the municipalities provide as well. Weeding and trimming of vegetation this last winter the winter last year was pretty crazy. So weeds got out of control. So we helped with noxious and invasive weeds, pulling those. For beautification, as well as safety. Dog waste removal is also a big thing that that's one of those things where people, they might not feel comfortable doing that just from a health standpoint. So that is optional, but it's something that we do if need be. Graffiti removal, painting as well, painting over that, cleaning that off of playground equipment, sweeping courts and pathways. Planting is a huge one. We plant a lot of trees and native brush and native plants as well. And then painting, we paint a lot of this. The city of Reno's asked us to paint a lot of the restrooms. Those are getting, they need a touch up as well too. So, and then the last two, reporting vandalism and unsafe conditions, the whole kind of purpose of the program is to be the eyes and ears of the community. So like if people see like a broken swing, they can't repair it. That has to be, there's somebody certified from the city of Reno or whatever municipality, they do that, but they report to us and then I report it to whoever needs to take care of that. Unsafe conditions, like maybe broken concrete on a pathway or a step or something like that as well too. So it's the kind of the purpose of the program is to just see what's going on in the community. And that's kind of where the NAB as well as the general public can help us out there too. And I'll give you ways you do that later in the presentation. All of these are subject to whatever the partner needs as well as something that we visually observe. So yeah, another cool thing about the program is it's completely free. Somebody had mentioned, one of our volunteer groups had mentioned that it's turnkey. And I really think that's actually a pretty good description of the program. You provide the volunteers, and we'll provide everything else. So that everything's included. It's all free. The trash pickers, the rakes, the shovels, the trash bags, all that stuff, disposal of the trash, my time, our intern, our AmeriCorps time, all of our staff time as well is included in that. So pretty much all you got to do is just bring the enthusiastic volunteers. And I put enthusiastic, but quite frankly, if you just want to bring anyone, we've had people, who don't want to do it, but that's required by either their parents or their business or something like that. And we'll take anyone. One thing, we had a group of foster kids who it was a summer camp and they just messed up somehow in the summer camp. And they thought the counselors came to us and they wanted us to like basically kind of punish them, give them some work to do in the community. Come to find, so we found a trail working project where they actually helped build a trail up at Rancho. And the kids ended up loving it. They were creating a trail with wheelbarrows and DG and just having a great time. And, some of the kids were like, this is cool. I want to maybe consider a construction job, based off this. And so they thought they were being punished, but I guess we had the last laugh when it came to that. So, yeah, we'll take anyone. And that's the cool thing about the program is that it's for everybody. So this is the impact for 2023. We had scheduled this in January, but we are kind of carrying over to this month. So yeah, as far as these numbers right here are only for the group cleanups. The next slide is for our community cleanups. So you can see that it's pretty impactful, 186 cleanups, almost 4,800 volunteers. That equates to about a little over 12,000 volunteer hours. So the volunteer hours is the number of volunteers multiplied by the hours they work. So for the sake of easy math, if there's 10 volunteers and they work 1 hour, that'd be 10 volunteer hours. That number right there, the 321,202, that's the value. So that's based on each volunteer hour being used or being paid $26.18 an hour. And that's that number comes from a think tank in Washington, D.C. And that's based off of, current trends and, analytics when it comes to data for people that, poverty rate and all that other stuff. So each state has a different one. Nevada is 2618. That number is likely to go up probably this year. We'll probably find out about it in March, just because of cost of living and all those different data and metrics. So yeah, 136,000 pounds of trash, 71,000 pounds of green waste. So that's weeds, leaves, pine needles, willows, other stuff like that. 45 sharps and syringes. The health district has wanted us to start getting data for that because we've noticed that it has gone up, unfortunately. So we ask our volunteers to report those as well. And then a little over 3,800 trees, flowers, and shrubs planted. So I won't go over the numbers here, but we do have 2 large community cleanups. The community-wide cleanups are usually at the end of April and the end of September. So the April cleanup kind of coincides with the Earth Month, where people are, it's a spring cleanup. People are looking to get out and do cleanups. So we have, a variety of sites, and then it's a one-day event, anywhere from 800 to 700 volunteers. And it's just a one-day event. We have anywhere from 20 to 25 different sites along the community. The Great Community Cleanup is focused on just the community in general, open space cleanups, illegal dumping, just any kind of beautification and parks as well. And that's in the end of April. And then our Truckee River Cleanup is more focused on the watershed. And that's at the end of, usually the middle of the end of September. And you can see that these impact numbers are huge. We do have a volunteer appreciation picnic where we invite everybody and who participated to come to a picnic where we provide lunch and beer and activities and raffle and stuff like that too, as a way to give back or just let them know that we appreciate the community. These are huge. You'll probably see them on the news networks and social media as well too. So the next few slides are just kind of pictures of some of the cleanups that we did last fall. ATO is a fraternity. They did Paradise Park. Paradise Park is kind of on our hit list as far as cleanups. We usually send a lot of people out there. I think that's in Ward 3, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, yeah, and so it's a huge park, 4 different ponds, huge acreage, so just a lot going on there. So if people are unsure of what they want to do as far as a litter control cleanup, usually we send them to Paradise Park. And then the next one is, I think it's Virginia Lake. Yeah. Reno Philharmonic did a cleanup at Virginia Lake. They picked up trash along the shoreline as well as kind of weeded some of the planters along Lakeside Drive. And then the next one is, so RSCBA, the Visitors Authority, they have adopted a spot at the McKinley Arts and Culture Center, and they did a lot of leaves and weeds and stuff. And then as far as I think Miguel Rivera is in Ward 3 as well. I just scheduled a cleanup with the Laborers Union. They're going to do a cleanup on February 24th at Miguel Rivera Park from 8 to noon. And we'll do probably mulching, of course, litter control, weeding some of the planters, probably sweeping up glass in the parking lot, just kind of making good. Hopefully we can get 20 people. People are welcome to come to that as well. And then also on March 2nd, the KTMB will be doing a cleanup of Oxbow Nature Study area along the railroad portion of it. The Reno River Rangers showed us some things there, and we're going to invite the community out for that March 2nd. That's a Saturday. And so you can check all of our events and stuff are on our website, ktmb.org/volunteer. So. And that's pretty much it. So I guess what I could leave you are actually some of our upcoming programs. So we had our Christmas tree recycling. We have that every year. So it'll be the day after Christmas, probably till January 7th or 10th. Like I mentioned, the Great Community Cleanup in April. KTMB's bicentennial flower planting is the ornamental flowers on Bicentennial Park on Ralston and First. We plant about 5,000 ornamental flowers there. And then September, and probably mid-September 21st, we'll do our river cleanup as well too. So if I could leave the NAB and the general public with anything, is if you were interested in doing either a group cleanup or any of our community cleanups, we'd love to have you. So as far as group cleanups, we work with businesses, churches, fraternities, sororities, scouting groups, anybody who basically wants to form a group, and they can select their own day and time. We'll provide the tools and the guidance if you want to do that. And then if you're more interested in like a pre-planned event, we're going to have community cleanups, the 2 large ones, and then pretty much the first and the third Saturday of every month, starting in March through October, if you're interested in that. So you can sign up on our website. Walk-ups are welcome. You don't have to stay the whole time. You can just come and support us. That's pretty much what we're asking too. So cool. That's pretty much it. Anybody have any questions?
Marie Rodriguez for the record. When you have a park cleanup, say for example, Paradise or Virginia Lake, how long does that cleanup generally take from start to finish on any given cleanup day?
Yeah, so it's kind of to whatever the groups wants. I typically find that an hour to an hour and a half, I would say that at most 3 hours is kind of where people start to kind of either get bored or tired. So I'd say anywhere from 1 to 3 hours would be appropriate. I mean, I know parks like, Paradise can be, they're huge. So, that it might not, even 3 hours might not be enough to clean the whole park. But it's kind of up to the discretion of the group as well as, how people, what they're feeling. Like I mentioned, we are volunteer driven. So, people have varying levels of interest and enthusiasm. And so we work with groups. Like I mentioned, if you want to stay for 20 minutes and bring your kids just to show our support, that's fine. But yeah, it's usually anywhere from an hour and a half to 3 hours would be a good estimate for a typical cleanup.
Thank you. And just as a follow-up, mention the planting of different shrubs and things. Are those donated and are those generally part of that cleanup or is it a separate activity?
Usually if it's a specific planting event, that's the main goal of the cleanup. As far as where those come from, they usually are provided by the Reno, either urban forester or the horticulturalist. We've had a few occasions where people have donated flowers, donated money for us to buy flowers. A lot of the cleanups that happen that way, of course, we consult the municipality. Biggest issue with that is making sure that there's proper irrigation. So if the irrigation in the park is already there, and if the city or the county wants something done in that's not particularly from what they've actually requested, like I say, it's an outside volunteer, as long as there's irrigation, and we'll provide that. That's the biggest issue with planting is the money, just providing getting them. These things cost money. And so we either have the city or the county provide that or an outside donor who wants to basically foot the bill on that. So.
Shonda Golden for the record. Thank you for your presentation. In regards to Paradise Park, when was the last time that it was cleaned up and is it on any type of schedule with you?
Yeah, so it's not on a particular schedule, but the last time it was cleaned up was, I believe it was in like November. We had a sorority who cleaned it up. They had about 10 people and they got a few bags. It was kind of on their, kind of something they wanted to do on their own. This is our off season, if you will. I know that sometimes we get these nice, weeks like last week, and then we get these snowstorms. So it's kind of hit or miss when it comes to that. So usually the season will kind of officially start in March where people really start to commit some more time. So March is kind of the unofficial start of the season. And so I've already started, April is our craziest month because of Earth Month. I've already booked probably like about 15 outside cleanups for that month. And it'll continue to, I'd say probably that month we'll probably do 70 or 80, just in addition to our community-wide event on the 27th. So, people, that's, spring starts to spring and Earth Month and people start to get, come out of their winter slumber. But yeah, Paradise Park is one of those areas that I get complaints all the time. I know that people, are that's a great park. I remember fishing in that park when I was a kid with my grandpa, and it means a lot to me. And so I know that we've had our challenges with the jurisdictions and kind of just how the boundaries operate, and it straddles Reno Sparks, and then there's the school right next door. And it's just, I know that Paradise Park is definitely something that I want to, Paradise Park and Sun Valley are my two areas where I want to focus a lot, as well as Yorrie Park. I remember I went to daycare center at Yorrie. They took us to Yorrie Park all the time. I was off of Kazaza, that's where our daycare was, and they took us to Yorrie all the time. And so, like being from Reno, I can see that that we need the help. The growth of the areas has been tremendous, even just last 5 years. So that's why I think it's important for the community to get involved, and organizations like KTMB that can provide as much help to our municipalities as we can, and give the community a chance to give back and feel proud that they live in one of the greatest cities in the country. So
I have a follow-up
Mhm.
question. How involved is the Department of Interior and the forestry involved with with Paradise Park? Because we have wildlife there. I mean, there's so much beauty there. That was something that was given to us and we're basically destroying it.
yeah, so the Forest Service has absolutely no jurisdiction. We put them on there just kind of on our outlying areas. That's mostly it's a City of Reno park, as well as I think that maybe the Department of Wildlife might have issues, or they might, when they stock the ponds, they might have some sort of jurisdiction there. But for the most part, it's a City of Reno park, and City of Reno is the main maintainer when it comes to that particular park.
Okay.
Mhm. But as far as wildlife, I know that I mean, there's some amazing birds there, you know. I mean, it's a migration, you know, area where birds, you know, like to, you know, habituate at. And, you know, so like I said, I know if you want to send me some groups, I'd love to send them out there and do our best to clean up. We've worked with Donna. I know that Councilman Martinez has worked with Donna Klontz with the senior organizations, trying to get groups out there to do cleanups. And it's, you know, it's a challenge, and, you know.
No, the city of Reno's done a great job with the park. They really have. And Councilman Martinez has been just amazing. My husband's a business owner. He owns Bizarre Guitar, so I'm right there at the park. But it is such a beautiful park and it has so much history. I'm not from here originally. And so I have friends like you that, like yourself, excuse me, that have fond memories of that park. And, you know, it's our responsibility to keep that park maintained. So, yeah, I have a very special place in my heart for that park.
Yeah, it's a great park. I remember before they even planted the grass, it was all dirt. You know, and they've made it definitely more hospitable to groups. I know that the Volunteers of America, they have their facility nearby and they utilize it, and as well as the senior. It's a great park. I'd love to, you know, do as much as we can to keep it clean and pristine as possible. I know that, you know, there's issues surrounding, you know, just the park in general, but I'm gonna do the best I can to, you know, get groups out there, and, you know, we need your help. That's kind of what I'm saying. So,
Well, how can we help?
yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is if you know, wouldn't it be great if I don't want to call you out, but wouldn't it be great if the Ward 3 board scheduled something? I mean, just give me a time and a date, and, you know, we'll put you on the calendar. We'll meet at probably the community center. We'll provide all the litter pickers, the bags, the trash, all, you know, the gloves, rakes, shovels. We have these, you know, we have a huge facility full of all sorts of landscaping equipment, everything you need for a cleanup. And it's all free to use. Like, I would rather have that stuff out in the community than sitting in our sheds. So yeah, if you, yeah, like I said, we're volunteer driven. So it's something that, we can't do it all myself. You know, I'm just one person, but get 50 people and they'd work an hour. That's 50 hours. That'd be like basically one city employee working a week. 40 hours doing that. And I also wanted to mention too, that the city of Reno has been an awesome partner. The Parks Department, you know, I know that they're, you know, the resources are thin and just everything, you know, and it's involved in that. But the city of Reno has been an amazing partner. Brazina and Basil and Scherer and Collins and Barrett, you know, they've been just awesome people to work with. And, you know, we have our difficulties, but, you know, they try the best they can. And I genuinely believe that they want what's best for our parks. And I think together we can make it happen.
Thank you.
Mhm.
We'll get back to you about that.
Yeah. I'm gonna stick around. Before I leave too, I brought some swag for you. So feel free to grab some. There's some bags and some other stuff for you. I'll leave my cards. I'll stick around to the end of the meeting and talk with you and do the meet and greet thing too. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
Give reminder. I just want to say something quickly. Give a reminder for the record. I have participated in the community cleanups, and I can't testify. It's one of the greatest feelings. You know, going out there and just participating and making that section of the river that I cleaned up. It's pretty cool. You know, you also get to see other people, hang out with other people, and it's just one of those very gratification feelings that you get out of this. And I'm pretty pumped up. Hopefully we can get a group together from the NAB. If not, I'll be participating this year in another community cleanup. And you know, we appreciate the hard work that you guys put into this, because, you know, like you said, there's a lot of man hours that goes into this, and the work that the volunteers do, it makes a great difference. Like you said, 40 hours that we do compared to a worker, it's just a tremendous. And if you multiply that by 5 volunteers doing 40 hours, you know, from one single person doing those 40 hours, it's just amazing what can get done. And you know, the results, it looks beautiful afterwards.
Yeah, and the results are great, but I think, you know, from my own perspective, just the relationships that are being built, just among people, and just myself included, people have been engaged based on meeting on our cleanups, and, kids have learned some amazing skills. They've learned some, they've learned kind of how to, present themselves, better. The kids have won awards, like presidential awards, from the volunteer work that they've done through us and other nonprofits. And it's just great to see people, like bettering themselves. The cleanups are great, like we make a huge impact, but in my opinion, it's the relationships that are built, like you mentioned, like it was just, that's kind of where I feel proud, to work here and just to see people blossom and just improve in that way. So.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Okay. We've got 2 development projects. We'll move on to C1, East Plum Lane.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Perry Schaffner, and I'm here on behalf of Brooklyn Oswald. So the proposed project is for a zoning map amendment located on 525 East Plum Lane. The parcel here is highlighted in red, so it's along Plum Lane, kind of in this redevelopment district, right near where, the new sprouts just went up and all of that. And it's located on that arterial roadway with quite a few mix of uses. So the project site there's an existing building. We're not proposing any changes to the site itself. Currently, there's 2 units within the building. One is an existing beauty salon, and the proposed change of use is going from PO zoning, so professional office, to GC general commercial, to allow for a tattoo studio, which is wanting to operate in that second back unit. As shown on the site, there's an existing building, has proper access and plenty of parking to support both uses. And then this is kind of the proposed change in zoning. As we can see, most of the other parcels along Plum Lane on this block are zoned PO, but there are several parcels nearby that are zoned GC. And there's an existing tattoo studio that's maybe 500 feet away that exists in that GC zone. And then this change in zoning would comply with the current master plan. It's zoned suburban mixed use and meets the master plan requirements for resilient economy, well-managed growth, vibrant neighborhood centers, safe, healthy, and inclusive community. And both PO and GC are allowed zones within that master plan land use designation. Yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Marie Rodriguez for the record. So it's currently a professional office. You said it's a nail salon or?
It's
no?
a hair nail salon is
Hair nail
the
salon?
existing use in the front unit.
And it's zoned as zoned as a professional office?
So under the zoning code, a nail salon or hair salon is considered like general personal services, which
Okay.
is an allowed use in both PO and GC.
Mhm. Okay. And is it going to be a variation? I don't know what plays into, because nail salon and hair, changing to tattoo, it almost seems kind of similar businesses because it's about appearance. Are you going to be working off hours or anything outside of when normal business would be going on?
No, so the
Okay.
current hours for the site, or for the proposed tattoo studio are, I believe, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. So relatively within the current workdays. And just to clarify, this business isn't replacing the hair salon. It's going in the back unit on the property. So the hair salon up front will stay, and then this would just be in the second unit. And the unit they're going into was previously a nail salon. So I think in terms of intensity of use, it's relatively the same, if not lower intensity of use. There's only going to be 2 artists in the space, and they could only each have 1 client at a time. So,
Okay, thank you.
Okay, looks good to us.
great.
Yeah,
Thank you all.
and we'll move on to C2, Bella Vista.
Good evening. My name is Eric Hasty. I'm with Wood Rogers. I'm representing the applicant, Sunny Hills Ranchos, and this is the Bella Vista Ranch Phase 2 PUD amendment. So this is an existing PUD. Obviously, it's a little over 77 acres. This was first adopted in 2020 or 2013. And since then, there's a lot of things that have kind of changed. There hasn't really been any development there hasn't been any development on the site. But there's been a lot that's gone on around it. Talus Valley, or formerly Daybreak, is to the north of this. Bella Vista, its counterpart is adjacent to the west. And this is just above the terminus of Rio Wrangler Parkway. So if anybody's familiar with this area, right where Rio Wrangler ends, this is where that property, the southern portion of that property is. As I mentioned, there were a lot of things that have changed since this plan was first adopted. One of those was the Veterans Parkway extension. The Southeast Connector came through, and it really did a lot of the flood mitigation area portions that were proposed in this, as well as the Steamboat Creek restoration that was completed with the Bella Vista Ranch Phase 1. This wetland protection restoration too was also included in this in the Bella Vista Ranch overall development. And so that wetlands that is actually on site right now has already been parceled off and has been restored, or is going to be currently restored with the wetland restoration plan that's already associated with this PUD. The flood storage basin is also parceled off and has been constructed as part of this PUD as well. But other than that, no other development has occurred on site. So some of the other things that have gone through, the Talus Valley, formerly Daybreak, the Talus Valley East is going through final map right now in the city of Reno. And so this is going to bring South Meadows Parkway across Steamboat Creek, which is part of this PUD, as well as the Rio Wrangler extension on Talus Valley to the north there, where it ends just right on the northeastern portion there. The gun club was also to the east of this, and that has not since closed and has been restored. And so there's major drainage way that kind of goes through the property, has really kind of been altered and because of the restoration processes on there. And then the South Meadows multimodal transportation study that was completed by RTC. They looked at the proposed street sections for Rio Wrangler and determined that this is no longer really needed. So we did a lot of cleanup with this amendment, and it's really bringing it up to date with all of these things that have kind of happened since its adoption. Go on to the next slide. So the big highlights of what we're proposing here is a reduction in the non-residential or commercial use that's going to be allowed. We're going to drop this down by about 61,000 square feet of commercial. So the maximum that's currently allowed right now is 172,000 square feet, and this is going to be reduced down to 117,000 square feet. But we are going to increase the units from 575 to 609. So the maximum amount of residential units is going to increase by 34. So some of the other things that I was talking that are a result of all those things I just went over in the last slide are we are proposing a new list of amount of uses for each one of these land uses. And because the current PUD doesn't specify very clearly what uses can be allowed and where. So we're trying to make this a little more comprehensive, as well as bringing up some of the design standards, the development standards, and the street design standards. These have all been kind of outdated in the current PUD because of the update to the City of Reno code, as well as some of the other agreements that have gone on. And so pretty much most of these are obsolete now. And so we're just kind of bringing these in to bring these up to current standards or removing them if they're kind of unnecessary. Another one of the big things that we're doing here, and you can see on this site plan, is in the existing PUD, that which is on the bottom left there, Villages C is where the commercial use is allowed, Villages C and B. And we're going to flip those to where A is right now. So in the new land use plan that's shown up on the top right there, the SMU or the pink area is where multifamily and commercial uses or non-residential uses are going to be allowed. And then the orange area, the mixed neighborhood, is where residential uses will be allowed. This is kind of to update where the existing homes are down there on the south, as well as the removal of the gun club. You don't really need these commercial uses down here anymore. It's going to be more conducive to homes where you have the South Meadows Parkway and Rio Wrangler Parkway intersections that are going to be there. That's going to be more conducive to commercial development. You can go on the next slide, please. So this is just comparing the two different types of land uses and the acreages, and it's really just highlighting how the 4.4 acre public park is still going to be part of this development. The flood storage, the wetlands, all those things are going to remain the same. Where we're really kind of pushing and pulling is the developable areas. So on the left there is the villages A, B, and C. You can see that those are somewhat shrinking when you look at the ones that are in blue, and the backbone infrastructure land use is really kind of increasing there. So some of the other things that are going in with this are this update to the street standards. Like I said, the Rio Wrangler street standards are being proposed new. There's very minor changes. It's really just 2 lanes up each way. And then the feral horse protection. This is to update to meet current City of Reno code standards, where we're providing fencing and making sure that those fences are monitored so that they're not there's any gaps in there, and if there is any gaps, then that we can go in there and have some form to repair them relatively quickly. And then the police and fire fees, these were originally proposed in the PUD, but these are now part of the City of Reno code. So we're just going to make those what they are now. A new traffic report was submitted with this just because of all the things that have changed and the change of the commercial and the residential. So a new traffic report has been submitted with this. So that's pretty much everything that is covered in this. Our next steps, we still need to go to the Ward 2 NAB. And then we're looking at a planning commission tentative date in March. So I'd be happy to answer any of your questions you have.
Jarrett Singh for the record. For the non-residential and commercial areas, what do you foresee going into those places?
So right now, the uses that we're proposing are very similar to they're closely aligned with the neighborhood commercial use that's in City of Reno. I didn't put the actual list. I have an actual list for you if you want to look at exactly what's in there. But there's also multifamily and townhomes and everything like that can be there. So with our traffic report, there's about 10 acres, a little over 10 acres, almost 11 acres shown in that SMU area. We estimate about 5 of those acres would be commercial and the rest would probably be multifamily or some high density housing.
Cool. And in the parts that are commercial, would this be like restaurants?
Yeah.
Things like that?
Yeah, exactly. It's more of the lower use, that you see like around like just neighborhoods, right? And some like offices or like dentistry, stuff like that.
Okay, cool. That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
I got a question about sewer.
Give me 1 second, sir. Can you please come up to the mic, say your name, and you will have 3 minutes. Yes, if you have a question for, sorry, can you say your name again?
It just has to go on the record.
Yeah, it has to go on the record.
Different nouns have different ways. So, sure.
Yeah, you can just,
Yes.
you can just come up to the microphone just so we have your question on the record.
Mike Steedman for the record. And I was curious, when you increase the housing, will that increase sewer? Because we have a problem with sewer in the city.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Eric Casey for the record again. So we are increasing the housing by, I think it was 34 houses, but we're also reducing the amount of commercial that would be allowed. And so the initial sewer report that was submitted with the PUD is still within compliance of these additional units that will be added. So when they go through the process of tentative map or final map, they will have to make sure that that the sewer capacity is available. They've already preliminarily looked at it and it looks good for now. So.
Give a reminder for the record. Given that we have a lot of issues on that side of town as far as with wild horses and all that kind of stuff, looking at the map, that stream, doing all these developments right there, would that has there been any environmental impact as far as how that would impact the how the horses could get irrigation throughout that section of the land or anything like that?
So the current policy right now is to fence it off, right? And so do not allow them onto any of the property. And so that's kind of what our proposal is going forward. We will have to look into if there's going to be anything about preventing them from getting water. I'm not sure where the water source is on that right now, but currently it's a fence them out policy, which is the state's approach.
Okay, yeah, because it's just like it's a food for thought as far as it's a wetland right there that could possibly be also another like food resources for the horses, and again cutting off all of that access to the stream.
Yeah,
could potentially be really as there's more land that they could get their resources from, but it's kind of we're kind of really cutting off a lot of resources for them at that section right there. And go ahead.
As part of this, we've already been reaching out to the horse groups who are really more knowledgeable about how to deal with an issue like this. And we will continue to be in contact with them and see the best way to make sure that it's safe for the people that are going to be living there and for the horses as well.
Okay. Just as a personal note, I don't know, seems kind of pushing it. Putting all the extra homes, and I understand we are shorthanded on homes and all that kind of stuff, but for me personally, doesn't seem viable as far as also having the floodplains and all that kind of stuff going through the same neighborhoods. I mean, I personally wouldn't purchase a home in the area, but everybody's different. But that's just my personal take. So yeah, like I said, that's my only concern about with the horses out there and cutting there. We are already invading so much of the land as it is, and we keep on little by little as a little puzzle cutting into more, and it could be it's an issue that needs to be overseen for sure. Thank you, sir.
As far as wild horses, so being a botanist ecologist, Mike Steedman for the record, actually protecting the wetlands or protecting the wetlands from the wild horses, which are not indigenous to Nevada. So protecting them, the wetlands is a good thing for the other animals in flora and fauna in Nevada.
And looks like we have a comment on Zoom also.
Yes, Mr. Chair. All right, Wanda, I'm going to allow you to speak now.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
I had two questions. One was, I thought this was going in February to Plan Commission. Has it been now moved to March?
Yeah, we're looking at a March date now.
Okay. And second, I could be wrong, but I walked over there several times in that area, and I believe the horses are already cut off from Steamboat Creek. They have been, I believe, for the last 7 or 8 years. So, because I see that there's wire fence and stuff along the creek itself. I know they're back in on some of those properties, but they don't get there for their water source. So I was just wondering, I'm happy to hear you're working with the horses, and I'm hoping that you'll continue your horse groups, and I hope we continue to do that. That would be my only other feedback.
Yeah, thank you.
Marie Rodriguez for the record. I'm kind of familiar with that area down there by past South Meadows and Veterans Parkway, and I know those neighborhoods routinely get horses still. I'm down there and people have to deal with the stuff in their front yard from the horses. And I've driven along there and they're on the side of the road, eating the grass in those neighborhoods. My question has more to do though with the suburban mixed use. Did I understand correctly that you're talking about those being multi-family things, which translation apartments?
There's the possibility that could be developed as all commercial, or it could be developed as a mix of commercial and apartments, or it could be developed as a mix of commercial and townhomes or some other type of duplex.
Has anybody expressed interest? Have there been any apartment complex companies expressing interest in that property already?
Not that I'm aware of. I'm the planner on this, so I'm not the landowner, so
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Because my concern is if we're already getting more neighborhoods, once you start getting all those apartment complexes, then we're looking at, do we have enough schools in that area? And so I was just wondering if any apartment complexes are making any plans already.
No, but
Mhm.
the amount of units that is already allowed in this PUD, like the 575 units are already accounted for. And so for the elementary school that was built there and everything, it's already taking into account the 575 units that are already allowed on this PUD. And so this amendment is just going to change the amount of units, increase it by 34. So the school district will have to, when they come in with their tentative map and everything like that, we'll have to look and make sure that the schools can support that additional 34 units.
Wanda, I wanted to make sure, did you have another question? I think you raised your hand again.
Nope, it's down.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
It was down.
Okay, any more questions in the room or from the NAB?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thanks for bearing with us here, guys, for the long meeting. So we'll move on to if there are any announcements from up here. And any future agenda items. Ilya Arborman, for the record, I did want to just briefly suggest or ask about one thing, Abby. I saw, I'm not sure if it was a presentation at City Council, but there was a presentation from the Reno Justice Court, like the Community Resource Center, I think. I just wanted to flag that as something that would be, at least for me, I'd like to maybe see that in a future agenda, just presentation from the resources there, because that's a newish thing that would be good to let the community know about.
Yeah, definitely.
Are you talking about like the community court that Lieutenant Carney was talking about? You're talking about
No,
something
community
different?
court happens at the library. This is
Okay.
at the Reno Justice Court, and it's like a resource center where legal services can help you with stuff. Yeah. Community court is like, yeah, if you get a ticket, you have to go there. You know, this is like where you would go voluntarily.
Okay, no, that's what I was asking, because they offer resources to that community court as well, and I just want to make sure
Oh, yeah, yeah.
it was not the same one. Okay.
No, yeah, because
Thanks.
I just saw a presentation recently or something about the justice court. Yeah, so just flagging that. Anything else? Any more public comment in the room or on Zoom? Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
A reminder for the record, motion to adjourn.
Chair Singh for the record, I second.
Okay, do we want to adjourn? Okay, everybody have a good night.
Thank you.
We could just keep going.